7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things in life that suck: death, taxes, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today we're going to go ahead and get into a couple of things, man. I want to talk about my draft night. I never got to tell you guys about, meeting Peter Warrick, how that entire thing kind of transpired or how it kind of played out, so I want to get into that. And then we'll touch on a couple of other Bengals topics. But if you're listening, make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. We're in the iTunes store. We're also on Google. Our name is New Stripe City, so make sure you subscribe and keep up with our podcast. We've been going for a long time now. This is my first episode of the Thursday edition. As I said on the previous episode, if you didn't listen to that one, go back and check it out. But I basically said that we're going to have the New Stripe City live episodes on Sunday. They stream live on my YouTube channel. That's also called New Stripe City. And if you subscribe to that channel, you actually get an email notification whenever it's time for me to upload a new video or go live. And I actually handle that show with my co-host G. But yeah, make sure that you check us out. It's a lot of downtime in the off season right now, and obviously you guys are like me. You're a diehard Bengals fan, so you're looking for any kind of material that you can find out here. So New Stripe City can provide all of your needs. We try to give a lot of the Bengals perspective from a somewhat, I want to say, realistic or informative perspective, but from the fans' perspective, because we're doing this for the diehard fans, the guys that or, right after the draft, we're looking up everything on YouTube or on Google or for any new articles, or we're in TeamStream looking for anything we can find. So make sure you check us out. We love having you guys. And I like to call you guys the CMB, the diehards, man. Shout out to the guys on the YouTube channel who leave comments, who leave feedback. I love it, man. The guys who tweet me. So let's keep this going. But yeah, let's get into the draft party, right? So a coworker of mine invited me. He was a season ticket holder for FSU, and apparently they had a special event where you could, in a sense, watch the draft. It was a draft party, but only a selected number of individuals were able to come, and I was lucky to actually get invited to it. My buddy is actually a Jaguars fan. But anyway, we had been basically talking about the draft the entire time because that's what diehards do, and I was like, I wonder if Peter Warrick could be there, right? So then I get the email, and I'm looking because he told me that there was going to be a live panel. There was a lot of nice food out there. There was actually a silent auction as well. So I looked at the panel, and, of course, I see Peter Warrick. And, I mean, honestly, I was going to wear a Bengals jersey there no matter what. It's who day, all day, every day. I'm never scared to rep my team, even in Florida. I don't care. I'm going to rock my stuff all day. So I went in there rocking the jersey, and I was like, man, it'd be crazy if I run into Peter Warrick in here with the Bengals jersey on. He'll have to say something to me, right? And so, I get there, and I actually went with my coworker and another Bengals friend of mine, Dar. Dar actually is from Anderson and moved down to Tallahassee. So we met at a B-Dubs, probably want to say about 2009, I'd probably say. We met at a B-Dubs, and we've been friends ever since. So anytime anything happens down here, we're always hitting the Bengals places where, I mean, honestly, there's not really too many Bengals places down here, but we go to sports bars and basically watch the game. And yeah, we hold it down against Steelers fans. They're everywhere. But anyway, so it's me, my coworker, and Dar, and we're chilling, and we come in, and the first thing we do is we slide to the drink section. And so I go in and I get me a Sprite, and I look to my left, and it's Peter Warrick. Like, he's legit just sitting there. And so I'm like, what's up? I'm just going to play it cool. I'm not trying to be a groupie or anything. I mean, this is a grown man. I mean, even though I want to believe that my first actual Bengals jersey actually was a Peter Warrick jersey, I just couldn't really believe it. But the dude was like real down to earth. Like I came over and talked to him, and he noticed the jersey and everything, and we struck up a conversation. And I was just like, hey man, I know you got like a bad rap around the Natty, but I appreciate everything that you did for the organization. Like, and I was like, it's crazy how the organization has, in a sense, from when you played, kind of changed the culture. And he was like, yeah, but he was a little upset with how things kind of ended in his last days in Cincy, and he kind of shared some of that information with me, and it kind of made me like, man, I really don't like how they did him on the way out. And I mean, he didn't have the kindest words, I guess, for Marvin Lewis, but I could understand in his situation how things played out. And for those who are listening, if you don't know who Peter Warrick is, I'm not sure if you should be listening to NSC because this is for diehards. But Peter Warrick was basically a guy. I believe we took him with the 5th overall pick. And he was around during like the Chad Johnson era, TJ Houshmandzadeh era, and I really remember that era like fluidly. He actually was supposed to be what Chad Johnson ended up being, but in my opinion, P-Dub actually kind of, in a sense, put it together, I want to say 2003, right before he got released the next year. So he actually had a pretty decent year. Then he got hurt, and if you were a fan of the Bengals, he had a really bad, I want to say, foot or ankle injury. So he was out for a while. And what ended up happening was initially the receivers were Chad Johnson, Peter Warrick on the outside, and TJ Houshmandzadeh actually started in the slot. A lot of people who might not have been aware back then, he actually started in the slot. So, it was kind of a 3-team attack. And then when P-Dub went down, it kind of opened the door for TJ Houshmandzadeh to take that second spot. And that's how TJ became TJ. And when that happened, the Bengals actually ended up cutting Peter Warrick. And just from talking to him, and I remember like right after we cut him, I think the Seahawks signed him, and the last time I remember seeing Peter Warrick, he was actually returning a kick for the Seahawks. But I remember the announcer saying that he still wished he was in Cincinnati. So you could definitely tell, and I could tell just from talking to him, he really was kind of upset about how things ended. And he actually told me that he hadn't been back to Cincinnati ever since then. And he was actually thinking about returning to the city this summer to go to the Jazz Festival. And so it was just cool, man, chopping it up with him. And, I just kind of got his... He actually asked me who I thought the Bengals were going to go after in the draft. And, at the time I was like, man, I'm not really sure because we have a lot of options. I don't know if they're going to go, linebacker, running back. Who knows? I think at the time I really felt like O.J. Howard was the pick. And Peter is actually an avid college football watcher. So we were just literally sitting down there like breaking down prospects. So we talked about Leonard Fournette. We talked about Dalvin Cook. We talked about a number of guys. And so then, like, basically he had to go off and participate in the event. But it was cool because around the time when the Bengals were on the clock, he came back around and he was like, man, who do you think we're going to get? And we were both shocked, honestly, that it was John Ross. And I was like, wow, we were just in total shock. And I think his reaction was that he was somewhat surprised, but he thought that Ross was a very good player. He was really fast. And I asked him, how do you think, John Ross will fit with AJ? And he was like, well, I think that he'll be a good complement to AJ. I think he'll complement him very well. And so those were kind of his thoughts on, the first draft pick that we had with John Ross. It just kind of was crazy that you're basically at a draft party, with Peter Warrick, a former Bengal, breaking down, the actual Bengals draft. So I thought that was like really interesting. And so he kind of thought that it was a good pick. From his immediate feedback, he thought it was basically a pretty good pick. And it was just crazy that, the Bengals have only picked a couple of receivers in recent history. And I'm saying, I guess, going back to 2000 when Peter came into the league, they've only picked, I want to say, like 3 receivers in the top 10. And that's Peter Warrick, A.J. Green, and John Ross. So it kind of was that connection on that front as well as him seeing a guy that, was basically a part of a kind of a select or elite club that he was in, being picked as a top 10 draft pick. So that was cool. Um, Other than that, I'm trying to think what else me and Peter really talked about. And the thing about it was, he never at once kind of made me feel like I was actually like asking him too many questions or doing anything. And I actually told him, I was like, man, we need you back out there, Pete Up. Like, the guy is still in great shape. I don't know if you guys saw the picture of me at the draft party with Peter Warrick, but if you haven't, it's on my Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter at New Stripe City. But check out my AV on there. It's a picture of me and Pete. We actually took a couple of pictures. I actually didn't even want to ask the man for a picture, but Dar was like, hey, bought your jersey back in the day. You mind if I get a picture? I mean, it's Peter Warrick, so it was definitely a dope experience. Something that I'll always remember. And hopefully, like, when the Bengals do this kind of Ring of Honor thing, I know that Warrick wasn't, a super amazing player, but he was still a pretty decent player. So it'd be nice to at least kind of mend some of those bad feelings over by at least inviting him out there. I'm not saying that we have to give him a plaque or anything, but just having a former Bengal at the game would be, pretty great. Because for those who don't remember Peter Warrick in college, Peter Warrick was a stud. He's honestly one of the best college players of all time. So pretty dope of experience, and I hope that the Bengals can kind of, in a sense, mend some of those sore wounds, because it's like that with a lot of the older players. And you have to think about it, like, Peter Warrick wasn't there for the 2005 and all of that, where we at least experienced some success. He was there for the bad years where we had guys like Achilles Smith and stuff throwing on the ball. So you have to take that into account as well. Guys like Achilles Smith and Gus Frerotte were out there. So, he was there in a very dark period. So, a lot of Bengals that were there around that time don't really have too high of an opinion of the Bengals. And I mean, honestly, I kind of understand it, because the way things are now compared to how they were then is completely the exact opposite. You're talking about guys who didn't have proper facilities. I mean, the culture was nowhere near the same. Like, there wasn't a positive aspect of the culture at all back then. So I kind of understand how he felt, how he did. Wrapping up the Peter Warrick story, I want to get into some potential free agents that the Bengals could still go after, that are still on the market. If you guys have been checking out newstripecity.com, I've been posting articles there, and one that really got a lot of traction in the jungle was basically an article that I posted on free agent options that the Bengals could still pursue. So I'm just gonna give you guys a rundown of who I think could potentially be a fit with the Bengals, or someone that they could at least bring in at a bargain rate, especially during this timing. Hey, you're seeing guys like Jamal Charles and other guys around the league sign for peanuts. So I'm gonna start off first with the offensive line. You got Ryan Clady out there. Obviously, he's been hurt the past couple of years. I'd probably say above average tackle. He's 6'6", 315. He could be somewhat of an insurance policy at left tackle with Cedric Ogbuehi. I mean, we don't really know what we have in him. He struggled mightily last year. We're hoping that he can get it together, but I mean, there's not really another option after him. I mean, you had Trey Hopkins, possibly if they shift some guys around, possibly Jake Fisher, but at the end of the day, you need something else to shore up that line. And I mean, given his injury history and not really getting it done, he can't really, in a sense, command that much money. So I think Ryan Clady would actually be a pretty decent option. You also have King Dunlap. He's 31. He's pretty tall at 6'9", 330. He's a guy that could possibly play a swing tackle, but the thing is, he kind of has some off-the-field issues going on right now, and, with everything going on with Pac-Man Jones, which I'll talk about that as well, but with the Joe Mixon and all of that, I don't think that that's somebody that you want to add to the locker room right now. Obviously, the Bengals fan favorites is Nick Mangold. He's 33. He's kind of past his prime, but still would probably be considered better than Russell Bodine, which is, I mean, we all know about Bodine, but he could be an option too. I think that he would come even cheaper than Clady and Dunlap, honestly. Gary Barnidge, the only reason I feel like he would be a great option for us, but I think that the way that the Bengals staff kind of feels about our tight ends, and they kind of made that statement in the draft, I don't think that he would realistically be an option for us. And then we also have Andrew Tiller. He's a guard that's 28, 6'4", 324. Somebody that we can use on the interior. I mean, we really don't have anybody other than outside of obviously Andre Smith and Eric Winston. The younger guys, I mean, I really want to see what they can do. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but even if you just throw in some competition there, just in case, it wouldn't really hurt you too bad. Honestly, I'm not really the biggest fan of Clint Bowling either, but I'm not saying that Andrew Tiller is definitely a replacement because he's still obviously a free agent right now. On the defensive side of things, I kind of targeted linebacker. You got a guy out there in Gerald Hodges. I really like this guy. He's 26. 6'2", 236, can play all around at the linebacker position, was pretty solid for the 49ers last year. Could be another guy that they could bring in kind of in a backup or reserve role, kind of like I just feel like he's kind of in the mode of a Kevin Minter as far as his demographics. He's a 26-year-old, he's still in his mid-20s, could be a guy that you could bring in and could possibly pay off dividends, and he's not old. Perry Riley, another guy, he actually played under our linebacker coach and had some of the best years under him, but obviously he had some injuries that he was battling, so that would be a cause for concern, but he wouldn't be a bad option at all. And DeAndre Levy, another guy that's been hurt for 2 years, obviously him being hurt and him being 30, obviously that would have to depend on his medical. I mean, you did bring in a John Ross, you did bring in a Carl Lawson, so you've taken guys, even Cedric Ogbuehi. I mean, we took him after he tore his ACL, so maybe it's a thing where 2 years after the injury, Levy can possibly get back to being the outside linebacker that he was in years past. But either way it goes, man, whether the Bengals decide to pick up one of these guys or whether they wait until training camp cuts to add another veteran to the roster, I think that they really could do that. We'll see how things go, but with that being said, I'll just really briefly touch on the Pac-Man thing, and then I'll talk to you guys about a special that we're having right now with the Madden highlights. So we'll talk about Pac-Man. In my opinion, a lot of the stories that you guys have seen have been blown out of proportion. You guys all know about him getting into a car accident and basically cussing out a teenager, being pissed. And I mean, I understand anybody's going to be pissed about it, but I'm starting to get the impression that Pac just doesn't realize the spotlight that's on him and how he has to move. And I say that because it's like, why would you even upload the video in the first place? I understand it pisses you off and everything, but you have to have the awareness to know that, you're walking on a tight leash, man. You had guys like AJ Green going out on the limb, basically co-signing you, telling the media that they're blowing things out of proportion, and the next day something like this happens, and then you have Mike Brown going to bat for you, and it's like, at the end of the day, man, people weren't necessarily, the way I viewed it was, I understand that you're saying, thanks to your anger management classes, you're not, doing anything crazy. But honestly, bruh, the whole reason that people were upset with the whole cop video is because you were cussing them out. So cussing a kid out on camera isn't going to really prove your case. And you got to understand, like TMZ and all of them, they have a target on your back, man. They're doing all of this stuff for clickbait because they know that Pac-Man is a trending topic for Bengals fans and for local people that don't want to see him do good. And he just has to recognize that, and I don't think he really does, so that's what kind of scares me about the whole situation. So Pac-Man, I just hope, man, that you just start moving different, move smarter, be more low-key. I'm not telling you to try to change who you are, but you got to try to avoid the media at all costs, man, because we're going to be the only team that is willing to stand by you in these situations. If it gets to the point where we can't, I really feel bad because I love Pac-Man as a player, as a father, and all of that, and I would hate to see his family be put in a certain situation because of that. And that's the thing that kills me the most. You have to humble yourself, man. You have to remember where you were before we gave you that chance. And it's like, you don't have to go and do WWF anymore. You make a pretty decent amount of money to take care of your family, to do the right things. Think about your family when you're going out here and making these decisions. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a life coach or anything like that, but we know how the media paints people, man. And, I mean, we've seen it with guys from, if you guys are fans of basketball, we've seen it from Allen Iverson to Michael Vick to all kinds of guys. Isaiah Thomas, guys that just got a bad rap from the media. T.O., we saw it now. So, I mean, that's what the media does, man. That's what they get paid to do. I'm not saying every journalist is like that, but that's what they're going to do. They're going to run with the hot take. So to wrap things up, I want to talk to you guys about the Game of Stripes. Game of Stripes is actually a simulation where I basically have updated the Bengals rosters on Madden. I've recorded the highlights, and I simulate games. And you can go and vote now. If you haven't checked out the first episode, check it out on my YouTube page. The link will be in the description. But check it out because now we have the Ravens on deck, the Patriots, the Texans, and some other teams. So check it out. Make sure you vote, and we'll be with that. And you can check it out on the YouTube page. But with that being said, this is Ace Boogie. Thanks for listening to New Stripe City. And we always leave this with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
Always business. Never personal.
Here's the 3rd and 7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Anything that like that, so. Death, taxes, and 85 will always